today I'm talking about Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. This is a hot topic right now in YouTube. A lot of people are clamoring for this fight. A lot of people want this fight to happen ASAP, and I can't blame them. But there seems to be a lot of talk going on about this fight lately, and I'm no exception to this. The last video I did was about Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. So I'm no exception to the rule. But there's a lot of talk about this. There's even people that have gone as far as to give their predictions bright and early, before the fight's even made, before the fight's even announced, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on the bandwagon here, man. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my predictions early on. If this fight was made, or fuck that, not if, when this fight is made, I'm going to give you guys my predictions on what I believe is going to happen in this fight. Okay? All right, so before I get to my predictions, let me go ahead and break down the fight. And you guys know how I break down the fight. I give you guys my assessment of the attributes. All right. And then I go into my predictions as far as what I think is going to happen in the fight and the key elements I feel that will play the biggest role in the fight in general. Okay. All right. So let me start by breaking down the attributes. Okay. And I'm going to go through this pretty fast because I don't want this video to be too long. All right. But let me go through the attributes. Okay. Let's start with the speed. All right. The speed is, that's hands down. You would have to give that to Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman in general has the faster hands, has the faster feet. All right. He throws very lightning fast combinations. And that's part of the reason he's able to overwhelm a lot of his opponents. They can't see his punches coming. They get hit flush constantly. I mean, ask Robert Guerrero. Ask some of these guys that stand in the middle of the ring with Keith Thurman. They get hit. They get hit a lot. All right. And a good part of that is because of his speed. All right. Now, this is not saying that Errol Spence doesn't have speed, because Errol Spence is a pretty quick guy, too. But when it comes to speed, with his feet, when it comes to speed with your hands, you have to give that to Keith Thurman, hands down. All right, so moving on to the next attribute, which would be power. Now, a lot of people would give Errol Spence the edge in power, but I don't give Errol Spence the edge in power, and I'll tell you why. To me, Errol Spence, his power is attributed to his attrition. Errol Spence isn't the kind of guy who will knock you out with one punch. Neither is Keith Thurman per se. But to me, Keith Thurman's more likely to hurt you with one punch at a time than Errol Spence. Errol Spence is going to wear you down to the body, okay, and then start hurting you up top. And it will be a gradual, meticulous process with Errol Spence. As for Keith Thurman, for the most part, he's headhunting. He didn't really throw too many body shots, so it's not a meticulous process. He'll just fuck around and hurt you with one punch because his power is just the real deal. Okay, so when it comes to power, I give Keith Thurman the edge when it comes to power. Okay. Now, the next topic will be the technical skill. Now, to me, technical skill is relative. It's a matter of opinion, as is all of this. But technical skill, to me, more so is a matter of opinion, because with technical skill, it's more of a matter of what you like as opposed to what it actually is. Okay. Now, what I like when it comes to technical skill, I like fighters that are more versatile. I like fighters that have a lot of tools in the toolbox, okay? I like fighters that can fight at long range, that can fight at short range, that can fight at mid-range, okay? That can use lateral movement, okay? I like fighters that just have the ability to fight different ways throughout the course of a fight. To me, Keith Thurman exudes that very characteristic, as opposed to Errol Spence, who for the most part fights one way. Straightforward, to the point, straight up and down, no special effects, that sort of thing. All right, and then that's not a clown or a diss to Errol Spence, but for the most part, that's how he fights. He's very skilled and very smart about the way he goes about employing his style or his technique, that sort of thing. But for the most part, we know what it is. He's not going to fight you in different ways, okay? But that's just me, okay? For the sake of this video, I'm going to say Errol Spence has the better technical skills, okay? And I know that was like a switch of gears real fast. But I'm going to say that because Errol Spence has the more polished style, okay? People recognize Errol Spence to have the more refined style because of how he throws his punches and what he does in the ring, the fundamental aspect of what he does. So people will give him the edge when it comes to technical skill. So for the sake of that way of thinking, I'll go ahead and give Errol Spence the edge when it comes to the technical skills. The fourth attribute would be defense. Now, defense, that would also be another attribute I would give to Keith Thurman, because to me, Keith Thurman has shown the ability to not get hit when he chooses to not get hit. Now, don't get me wrong, they're both very hittable. They're both very much hittable, okay? But Keith Thurman, when he makes a conscious decision to not get hit, he's more likely to not get hit, okay? Errol Spence, conscious or unconscious, he's going to get hit no matter what. He doesn't possess the slickness, okay, or the ability to be able to not get hit should that time ever possess itself, or should that time ever come about. Okay? Errol Spence, for the most part, is pretty hittable no matter what happens. Okay? All right, so, those are the general characteristics. Okay? Power, speed, technical skill, and defense. Okay? Now, Keith Thurman, as you can see right off the bat, controls 3 of the 4 general attributes. Okay? Now, of course, there's other things to look at in addition to that. You look at the experience, which would also go to Keith Thurman. Okay? Because unlike Kell Brook, who's fought one top welterweight and then a whole catalog of bums, Keith Thurman has fought a steady stream of good, solid competition, okay? And his stream of good competition is much better than Errol Spence's stream of good competition. For example, Phil LaGreco versus Jesus Soto Karass. Okay, Julio Diaz versus some of the other guys that Errol Spence has fought, excluding Chris Algieri, okay? Just something for example. So you get what I mean when I say Keith Thurman has better experience. Not only that, but I mean Keith Thurman has fought in a unification fight. He fought Danny Garcia. He fought Sean Porter. Okay? So Keith Thurman has that edge when it comes to experience. Okay? Another intangible attribute that Keith Thurman has over Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence does have the size over Keith Thurman. To me, Errol Spence is bigger than Keith Thurman. I mean, I think that's pretty much fact. I think Errol Spence is like 5'10" and walks around probably at like 180. I don't predict Keith Thurman to be that big. So size-wise, that will go to Errol Spence. Okay, but even with that characteristic or that attribute on Errol Spence's side, he's still outmatched in about 4 or 5 other categories when it comes to the attributes. And then there's the final attribute, which is the boxing IQ. Now, I give Keith Thurman the edge when it comes to boxing IQ as well. Okay? Because the boxing IQ, to me, a fighter that has superior boxing IQ has the ability to make adjustments, has the ability to do what's necessary in order to win the fight. That is the definition of a fighter with superior boxing IQ. Floyd Mayweather, in his later years of boxing, won fights with his boxing IQ. Not so much his skill, not so much his punching power, not so much his speed, not so much any of the other skills. He won fights with his boxing IQ. Okay? There are very few fighters out there that have that superior boxing IQ that can win fights because of it. Okay? I think Keith Thurman is one of them. Keith Thurman, Terrence Crawford. These are fighters that have that superior boxing IQ that are able to win fights based on that. Okay? Now, ultimately, I think this fight is going to come down to that very trait. Okay? Even though Keith Thurman has the advantage when it comes to all the other attributes, based on my assessment of the attributes, of course, because your assessment of those attributes could be very different than my assessment of those attributes. Based on my assessment of those attributes, Keith Thurman has the edge. Okay? But aside from those, okay, because to me, even though he has the advantage in those attributes, it's not a big enough gap to be able to say for sure that Keith Thurman would win those fights. Okay? But even though he has the advantage in those attributes, I believe that this fight's going to come down to Keith Thurman's boxing IQ. I think Keith Thurman has a superior boxing IQ. I think Keith Thurman is going to come into this fight, okay, fighting one way and end the fight fighting another way. And I don't think Errol Spence will be able to adapt to what Keith Thurman is doing. I think Keith Thurman has the bigger playbook. Okay? I think Keith Thurman is going to come into this fight and he's going to eke it by. He's going to eke it by. He's going to do just enough to beat Errol Spence. Okay? Just enough to beat Errol Spence. All right? To me, Errol Spence doesn't have that ability to make adjustments in the ring. He's a pressure fighter through and through. He's going to do what he does until the death of him. I mean, that Kell Brook fight, there were a lot of different situations where what he was doing was more so detrimental than beneficial. But he continued to do it through and through, and it ended up working out for him. Don't get me wrong. But could he have done some other things differently in that fight in order to gain the advantage quicker, smoother, without taking as much punishment? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? So ultimately, I think Keith Thurman is going to get in there with Errol Spence. It's going to go 12. Keith Thurman will win a unanimous decision, utilizing his speed advantage, utilizing that good punching power, and utilizing that superior boxing IQ that will enable him to do what's necessary to eke out rounds. Okay? A lot of people think that I've been hearing a lot of shit about people thinking that that Keith Thurman's gonna quit, or he's gonna give up in the middle of a fight, or some kind of bullshit like that. Mind you guys, we're talking about the same guy who in the fight with Robert Guerrero fought with a big ass hematoma on his head. He fought with a big ass hematoma on his head, and the hematoma didn't show up in the 11th round. The hematoma didn't show up in the 10th round. The hematoma didn't show up in the 12th round. The hematoma showed up in the 3rd round. And from round 3 all the way to round 12, Keith Thurman fought with a big ass hematoma on his head. People speak as if Keith Thurman has never been knocked down. Keith Thurman's been knocked down. Okay? Keith Thurman's been hurt in fights. Okay, but what does he do? What does he continue to do? He continues to get up. He continues to fight on, and he continues to win fights, okay? And that's exactly what's going to happen versus Errol Spence, okay? So I'm giving you my predictions early on. Fight hasn't been announced. Fight hasn't been made. Fight hasn't even been thought about yet for the two, for Al Heyman, that sort of thing. But I'm giving you guys my predictions right now, because I'm hearing the predictions out there. I'm hearing the Errol Spence, bandwagon stacking up. I'm hearing all the guys getting on the bus, okay? But I'm here to warn you. That bus might break down on your ass, okay? I'm riding with Keith Thurman on this one. Let me know what you guys think. Hit it up in the comment section below. You can also hit me up on Twitter, BoxX or XDie. You can hit me up on Facebook, Box -die. Like the video, subscribe, all that bullshit. But until next time, it's your boy D Dynamite signing out. Holla at your motherfucking boy.